You clicked on this video because you just relapsed on NoFap, and the chances are you're feeling pretty bad about your relapse. But in the next 8 to 12 minutes, I'm going to help you not only feel better about the mistake that you just made, but I'm actually going to help you leverage your relapse so that you can turn your relapse into a revolution, you can turn your addiction into conviction, and you can leave your lust in the dust for good. If you're ready to make that sort of transformation, then watch the full video because you won't want to miss anything that I have to say in this video. That said, the first thing that you need to do in order to recover from your relapse and turn your addiction into conviction is you need to break the cycle. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, right now, you are stuck in a cycle of negative momentum. And the way that this cycle works is you feel bad about a certain aspect or multiple aspects of your life in your current life situation. And because you feel bad about those aspects of your life, you act in such a way that you feel better about your current situation without actually changing the situation. And this is pretty much all relapsing is. It is you turning to escapism as a temporary fix when in all actuality, you need a permanent solution. But because you feel powerless over your situation, because you struggle to even contain or restrain your PMO urges, you end up feeling even worse than you did before you relapsed. So even though you think you feel better, from a localized standpoint, you do feel better, but from a globalized standpoint, you feel worse. So for example, if you eat junk food to feel better about a breakup or about any other sort of failure, you might think you feel better from eating the junk food, but ultimately you're going to end up feeling worse because now you're heartbroken and you're out of shape at the same time. And so what you need to do is you need to break that cycle. Now, how do you break that cycle? You need to break that cycle through self-forgiveness. Okay, with every action that you take and with every feeling that you feel about the actions that you've taken, you further establish a sense of self-identity. So in other words, when you continuously relapse, when you go on these binge relapse sessions, you solidify the self-perception that you are somebody who is addicted to PMO. You're not addicted to PMO. You're not addicted to anything unless you decide to be addicted, especially with something like PMO, because ultimately it is a purely psychological addiction. So you need to forgive yourself for all of the relapses, including this most recent relapse, especially this most recent relapse, so that you can free yourself from that identity, so that you can let go of the label that you've placed on yourself of being an addict or a junkie or whatever you call yourself as it pertains to your PMO infatuation. Now, how do you forgive yourself? That's much easier said than done. Maybe you can't forgive yourself. If you can't forgive yourself for what you've done, forgive yourself for how you feel about what you've done. So, in other words, if you can't forgive yourself for having relapsed on NoFap, forgive yourself for the guilt and the shame that you feel that are making you unable to forgive yourself for the actions that you've taken. So in other words, you can forgive yourself at the level of the action or at the level of the feeling. But either way, forgiveness is the only way that you can break that cycle and take that cycle into your own hands so that you can begin generating positive momentum and you can begin taking action that will reinforce a much more positive and empowering self-perception. And forgiveness is also very, very important and powerful because forgiveness requires accountability. When you forgive yourself, you're also insinuating to your subconscious mind that you are in control of that cycle that you feel stuck in. And as a result, you step beyond the cycle and you realize that it is a product of your own doing. And you then have the ability to change it. So by forgiving yourself, you are, in essence, taking accountability by default because you can't forgive yourself for something that you are not responsible for. So self-forgiveness to break the cycle. Now, another frame shift that you need to undergo in order to recover from your relapse, turn your relapse into a revolution, and become the version of yourself that you envisioned when you started this NoFap journey, is you need to understand that your story just got better. What do I mean by that? Well, I want you to think about the last movie you watched, the last book you read, or the last piece of content you consumed, the last story you consumed. And I want you to think about the plot from beginning to end, from the introduction to the resolution. The chances are, at some point in between, there was a conflict. And generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, the more strenuous the conflict was, the more difficult the conflict was to overcome, the better the story was. And the more relief you felt, even if just secondhand relief you felt, when the resolution arrived. Your story is the same exact way. Your story is the same way. Whenever you go through these conflicts, a lot of times you take them personally because you get caught in that cycle that I touched on earlier. And as a result, you change your self-perception to match the adversity that you're dealing with, rather than changing your self-perception to transcend the adversity that you're dealing with. Because ultimately, in order to overcome any problem, you have to approach the problem from the level of the solution, which is always at least one level above the level of the problem. In other words, you have to expand beyond your current self to solve the problems that you're currently facing. New levels bring new devils. And again, the more difficult the adversity is to overcome, the better the story is. So you are making your story better and more inspiring to not only other people who you will eventually tell your story to help them overcome their adversities, but also to your future self. Because your future self, whenever they face new problems that you can't even currently comprehend at the level that you're at, they are going to borrow the confidence that you have in order to overcome their problems. And they're going to borrow the confidence from all of the previous versions of themselves, including you, who have overcome adversities that at one point seemed insurmountable. Your story just got better. So take this relapse in stride and understand that with every adversity, every L, every failure that you experience in your life, whether it's with NoFap or anything else, your story is only getting better. Because guess what? I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Your survival rate up to this point for the adversities that you faced has been 100%. Which means that at every step along the way, at every new level you've reached, every adversity you faced, you have overcome it. And the reason why I can confidently say this is because you are alive and you are here watching this video. This means you have overcome all of the adversities that you have experienced and encountered in the past. Why would this one be any different? Your story just got better. Now, another frame shift that you need to undergo and implement in order to recover from this relapse is you need to weigh your day. Weigh your day. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you just relapsed, and like I said at the beginning of the video, you probably feel pretty bad about having relapsed. And that's justifiable. You betrayed the trust that you've established or are trying to establish with your previous self. And you feel very guilty about that. But if you can remove the feeling from it, if you can remove the emotion and assess the behavior objectively, you can see that it's just an isolated behavior. So you relapsed on NoFap, and maybe prior to that you were scrolling on social media. That's how you ended up relapsing on NoFap. And you made a series of bad decisions that led to that relapse. And what you need to do is you need to think about all of the negative things that you did without getting your emotions overly involved. I know it's difficult to completely detach your emotions from your day and the events that have taken place, especially the events that you have enacted or initiated, but assess all of the negative things that you've done. And then assess all of the positive things that you've done. So for example, you're watching this video right now. Maybe you worked out. Maybe you took a cold shower. Maybe you, I don't know, cold approached a girl or something like that, and that was a goal that you had. You overcame a fear. You've done something positive today. I can guarantee you that. You have done something positive, even just getting out of bed. Hopefully, you've gotten out of bed. If you haven't already, get up. And that's something you can add to the list. The chances are you have done just as many positive things as you have negative things. And that means that you are still making progress. You're slowing your progress down with all of the negativity, but slow progress is better than no progress. Now, in the event that the negatives outweigh the positives, you have one option, and that is to create more positives. It is as simple as that. Create positives, effective immediately. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a positive that you can do right now, that you can add to the positive side of the list. Aside from watching this video, that's one positive right there. But another positive you can do is you can click the link in the description and you can get the free NoFap Relapse Recovery Guide ebook. It is a 15-minute read that I wrote specifically for young men in your situation. Young men who are struggling with NoFap and who have hit rock bottom, not just in terms of their NoFap journeys, but in terms of their overall lives. Click the link in the description and you will be able to add that, having read that ebook, to the positive side of the list. And that is a weighted positive, which means that that one positive can undo or can outweigh all of the negatives that you've done throughout the day.